Ms. Tsege?
She just connected and ran away. Can you check her on the if she's part of in the group? I mean in the meeting.
She ran away. She's running away in that take.
Okay, Ms. Tsege, Mr. Mashiko will be on.
Nosibo, are you also running away?
The platform soon. Let's just give him a few minutes. Mashiko will be on the platform in a few minutes, according to Ms. Tsege, so we must wait for him.
going to chair this meeting in the absence of the chair. Maybe chair will connect in a few minutes. Yeah, can I officially welcome you all and feel free to participate. Today we'll receive a briefing by the Auditor-General with regard to the audit findings of the Water Board. In September 2022, the Office of the AG drafted a consolidated report on the 2020-2021 audit outcomes of all 9 water boards that we have in the country. That is Umgeni, Umhlatuse, Lepelle, Magalies, Bloem, Randwater, Sidibeng, Overbeck, and Amatola Water Board. On the audit as the water board's financial year ends the 30th June each year. Water boards are also established in terms of the Water Services Act of 1997, and their main role is to provide bulk potable water, wastewater to water services institutions within their respective service areas. The water boards vary in size, activities, customer mix, revenue base, and capacity. And some of the water boards provide retail water and sanitation services on behalf of the municipality. Randwater and Umgeni serve largely urban areas, while others partly serve rural areas. And they play a very important role in providing water to all. And as water boards enter into agreements with municipalities, it is important that water boards serving municipalities must provide good water quality services to our communities. The consolidated report shares the outcome of the AG of the financial year 2020-21 audit of South Africa's 9 water boards. And the focus of this report presented today is the AG's review of the water board's financial and non-financial performance against key service delivery objectives included in their annual performance report, so as to obtain a better understanding of the successes and, of course, the challenges that are experienced in delivering of their service mandate as set out in the Water Services Act. It is an important contribution to the oversight work of the Parliament, specifically this committee dealing with water and sanitation, the ministry, and the Department of Water and Sanitation. Comrades, honorable members, you're warmly welcomed. Can we observe a moment of silence for meditation and prayers and all prayers? Amen. Thank you very much. Apologies. Nosipo, do you have any apology?
Yes, Mr. Mr. Mashiko and Ms. Matuba are running late, but will join the meeting.
Thank you very much. 2 apologies I've received, that of Honorable Mioko and Honorable Mashiko Robert. I think we note all the apologies as received. 4th item is the adoption of minutes dated the 1st November 2022. Members, I'm of the view that you have received the minutes of the 1st November. Can you flag the minutes, Nosipo? Thank you very much. Page 1, attendance. Can check your name if it's appearing on the first page. You can go down. Oh, this is the last week meeting where we were dealing with the safety on dams. Page 2. Page 3. Any comments, members? On page 3, page 4, page 3, page 4. Are you fine, members?
You can go, it's fine.
Page 5, page 6. 6, I think, is the last page. Any comment?
I propose we accept the minutes.
Honorable Peterson.
I second the proposal.
Thank you, Honorable Peterson, for seconding the proposal. The minutes are duly accepted or adopted. Next item. The next
The
item
presentation by Auditor-General.
is the presentation by Auditor-General of South Africa. Who's leading the team from the AG?
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members. My name is Andries Segeto. I'm the Business Unit Leader responsible for the water and sanitation portfolio within the Office of the AG. I will lead the delegation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've switched on my video, but I can't see myself. So I would. Can you see me?
I wanted to speak about there's an animal that is around you.
Honorable Strai.
It's very bad, Mr. Zeke. Switch it off.
Yes,
Oh.
please. Switch it off. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I'll try to change the device. I don't know. I can't tell. Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Andries. I couldn't hear the surname.
Honorable Chairperson, Segeto.
Oh, Segeto. Oh, that is Segeto. You can take over.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, if needs be, you can introduce your delegation, the delegation that you are with. But yeah, you can continue with the presentation. Thanks very much. Yes, I can see you now.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Members. So I'll just switch on my camera just for purposes of at least showing my face, so that as you hear my voice, as we respond and do the presentation, at least you can then also reconcile the face with the voice. I'll switch it off for the rest of the session, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, just in the interest of making sure that we have a stable connection in the bandwidth and not to overburden that. Like I mentioned, Honorable Chair, my name is Andries Segeto. I am the Business Unit Leader responsible for the water and sanitation portfolio audit within the Office of the AG. Accompanying me today, I've got Ms. Jolene Pillay. Jolene will just switch on her camera quickly so that the Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members can see her. Jolene is the Engagement Manager responsible for the audit of the National Department of Water and Sanitation, as well as the Magalies Water Board. She then also is the lead engagement manager within the Office of the AG, who's responsible for coordinating the efforts of all the other colleagues in terms of the water portfolio. Like I mentioned, the various water boards are done by different members within the team AGSA, but she then is responsible for the coordination of those efforts, which then ultimately culminates into the product that we are here to discuss and present to the Honorable Chairperson. Jolene, do you mind switching on your camera and saying hi to the members before we then proceed with the presentation?
Good morning to everybody. I have switched on my camera. I hope you all can see me. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you today. Thank you, Andries.
Thank you, Jolene. So, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, like Honorable Chair mentioned right from the beginning of the meeting, we are here to come and present to the committee the outcomes for the Water Board report for PFMA 2020-2021. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, you would note the timing of the report. It seems like it's a bit late, but that's because, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, if you consider the space within which the water boards operate, you would all be aware that the water boards, even though or although they are PFMA audits, their year ends are different to the usual PFMA audits, which are 31 March. The water boards have a financial year end of 30 June. So that always resulted in this particular segment of government not having its own consolidated report, because the Office of the AG would do the 31 March financial year end audits, and we would produce what we would ordinarily refer to as the general report on the PFMA audit outcomes on an annual basis, which is released usually between November and December by the Office of the AG. But because these water boards have a June year end and they then give us financial statements for audit at the end of August, those audit reports are usually finalized towards the end of October, which means they don't have opportunity to then be included in the general reports on an annual basis. We also then don't include them in the MFMA general report, which is then released in the subsequent year after the local government audits have been completed, because they don't fall within the scope of the MFMA. So they've always been this missing link, if I can call it, in the middle. However, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, like Chairperson mentioned right at the beginning of the meeting, the Constitution establishes the basic right of access to sufficient water for everyone. And the National Development Plan 2030 recognizes this access to clean running water in all homes as quite a critical enabling milestone to the plan's success. So therefore, these water boards play quite a critical and pivotal role in terms of the water value chain. Jolene, if you can please just go to the slide of the value chain. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, you will also note, unlike different other value chains, when you talk about the value chain of water, you realize and note that there are different role players that are involved right across government, across the different spheres of government, across the different timing elements of government, like we've just outlined, that are responsible for the ultimate delivery of this resource. So when you look at the value chain of water, it's always important that you have that background in the back of your mind, so that you then understand that the flow of the value chain is directly linked to the flow of the actual resource. So it starts from the rains, the dams, the regional or the big bulk infrastructure that then translates into the wastewater treatment plants, the pump stations in the middle section, the regional space within which the water boards operate, all the way ultimately to the local government's reticulation network that must also be in place, so that when the citizens on the ground opens up a tap, that water actually flows out of the taps. So to that effect, it's important that we reflect on all these different role players in order for us to have a full appreciation and a full view of this scarce resource in our country. To that effect, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, you would also recall that at some point in time, when we're doing our BRRR briefing to the portfolio committee, as well as some of our pre-plan work, when we're having our engagements in the previous financial years, we noted that as the Office of the AG, because of the critical role and the impact that this particular resource has on our citizens, the Office of the AG was, in line with its new audit strategy, Culture Shift 2030, going to align itself to do a little bit more work in terms of the water and sanitation space. What that work was aimed to aims to entail, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, is to give a reflection of water in our country. Like I mentioned, this particular resource is therefore then responsible for implementation by various role players across the board. So therefore, if you want to reflect on the status of water in the country, it's therefore important that you have this holistic view with all the role players involved. So therefore, we embarked on what we refer to as a water sector strategy, where sometime in the future, we aim to produce a report as Office of the AG that will entail the efforts of all these role players that you are seeing on the screen, and therefore give some form of view in terms of the status of water in the country, including the roles and responsibilities that were played by these various role players. So that's something that we are quite looking forward to in the future, which should be in the next 3 to 4 months, hopefully. But as part of that process, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, it means that we then have to break it down into different chunks and in different pieces, because like I mentioned, you have a PFMA section, and then you have the regional side, which is the water boards, and at some point in time, which is the green side on the green blocks on the right-hand side, is where the local government comes into play. So with all these role players being required to report at various intervals throughout the year, it's therefore important that your plan then also has certain milestones where you reflect on a particular portion at a particular point in time, you report on that, and then towards the end, you'll then come and consolidate all of these views and then hopefully produce a consolidated report. The reason why I'm giving you this background, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, is so that Honorable Members not look at this report in isolation, that you also look at it going forward in line with the work that we would have done, as I mentioned, on the BRRR process. So during the BRRR process, you would recall that there was a significant focus by the Office of the AG during our presentation not only to give you some feedback in terms of the qualifications and the irregular expenditure and the fruitless and wasteful expenditures, but also to give you a greater sense in terms of some of those key focus areas that would have been identified in terms of the water sector and in terms of our water sector strategy. Jolene, you would recall in the BPR slides, there was a particular section that dealt with the performance of the PFMA auditees, being the department, the TCTA, and the WTE, reflecting on some of those key projects that they had implemented, giving you some feedback in terms of what those role players were required to do in terms of the focus areas being water quality, the water losses, and the implementation and maintenance of key infrastructure required to deliver the services or to deliver the water. So that is, if you look at this particular screen, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, when we did the BPR, it was more on the red or the orange side, which is the second block on the screen. So what we are going to reflect now is the light blue block, which is the water board space. And again, it shows you the flow of the water, which is the blue line. So we're now sort of in the intermediary phase. And then obviously, like I mentioned, at some point in time where the municipal audits that are ongoing, they will also give us a greater sense of reflection in terms of the infrastructure, as well as some of the key roles and responsibilities that level was supposed to have played in terms of the water quality and the water losses in terms of those focus areas, but we'll give you a little bit more context now. So having given you that background and that context, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, we are now going to move to the presentation of the actual outcomes and the reflection of the work that we did for that particular year in that previous financial year. We have just finalized the 21-22 financial year audits, and hopefully in the future we will then be in a position to produce a similar report as this one a little bit quicker before hopefully September next year. We should actually hopefully try and produce it before we even produce the local government report in June. But that's a commitment we made, and we'll see how best we endeavor to then deliver on that commitment to the committee. This will also ensure that oversight functions and oversight structures such as yourselves can then have timely information so that you can then engage on your oversight responsibilities and your consequence management processes. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, for the presentation that we have currently today, we are going to reflect on some of those key performance indicators. What is also a little bit different in terms of the reports that you would note in line with our new strategy is, yes, we know the Office of the AG is mandated to conduct and perform the audits. So we will still always, our primary mandate, our true north will remain that we must give you feedback in terms of the financial statements and the irregular expenditure. So that is still contained, the financial reporting and the performance of the institutions. However, there's also a greater call for us to also reflect on some of the key performance indicators within these sectors. So therefore, the focus areas that we will reflect on today is the status of the water quality and some of the performance indicators that are linked to water quality in the water boards, some of the key performance indicators and how these water boards reported and reflected on what they are doing in terms of water losses, the reliability of supply, and the increase to services, asset management, and then as well as contain some key recommendations for each one of those indicators. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, I'm very careful in the words that I'm choosing because we'll talk about the key performance indicators, being that we took the water board's performance reports and all their plans, and then we reflected on how they have captured those performance indicators and how they have performed in terms of those performance indicators. So in the current year going forward, we will expand a little bit more in terms of the work done in those particular areas. But for now, it was just a reflection on what they would have reported in some of those indicators that we deemed quite key in the delivery of water in that regard. And then obviously we will conclude with a high-level reflection on the portfolio audit outcomes in terms of those ones who are qualified, unqualified, the clean audits, etc. Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jolene, who will then assist us by taking us through the detailed presentation. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, it is quite a detailed presentation. It's about 30 slides or so. But at any point in time, should you feel you maybe want to ask a question or something is unclear, please feel free to ask us. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Jolene now. Jolene?
Thank you very much, Mr. Andres. I would love Mrs. Jolene to present all the slides. You are not going to interrupt here in terms of asking questions. We'll ask questions, comments immediately after she's done with the presentation. But surely she will be brief. She will just summarize the presentation. But I've gone through the presentation. It's not that long, as much as it's 30 slides. Thanks very much. Over to you, Honorable Mrs. Jolene. Sorry for that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members. I think my business unit leader has already provided a high-level summary of what you can expect in terms of the presentation, and has covered most of the detail in this executive summary. As the chair has indicated, the presentation highlights some of the key things that we wanted to bring to your attention. There is, however, a lot more detail in the report itself, which I understand has been shared with the members of the committee. So with that, I'm going to move directly then into the first topic, which is performance management. And you'll notice that with the report that was tabled, our focus is very much on the performance of the water boards. We consider that to be key in terms of the current strategy that we are following, and we are hopeful that that in analyzing performance and the indicators in the annual performance reports, that it will assist you with your oversight responsibilities. We start off this presentation firstly looking at performance management, and we wanted to highlight what we have done in terms of the audit of the water boards for the 2021 financial year. As the Auditor General, the PFMA says that we are required to report on the departments and entities in terms of its performance against predetermined objectives. So in terms of responsibility, we have in our audit reports provided certain findings or material findings relating to the annual performance report. And we just wanted to highlight at this point, what were some of the results of the audit process that was followed. In performing the audit itself, we do not look at all of the indicators that are included in the annual performance plan. We would only select a sample of programs. For the year under review, we had selected one program per entity, and based on that audit, we would have looked at the usefulness of the indicators and the targets, as well as the reliability of performance information. When we look at the usefulness of indicators and targets, we will consider whether the indicators are well designed and whether they are verifiable. And we also check whether the targets also meet the SMART criteria, that is, whether they are specific, measurable, relevant, and time-bound. In performing the audit, we will also look at the achievement that has been reported by the entity to assess whether it is reliable. In doing so, we will then select a sample, but essentially check whether the achievements are adequately supported by evidence that will confirm the reported achievement. So based on the audit that was performed, we had identified or reported that 2 water boards had material errors that could not be corrected, and therefore the material findings were included in their audit report. So in that respect, Lepele was unable to provide proper proof of its performance for one of its indicators, and Sedibeng could not support the performance that has been reported for 2 indicators as they were not well defined and verifiable. We further noted that there were 3 water boards, being Bloemwater, Mhlatuzi Water, and Overberg, that had submitted performance reports that contained material errors. Due to the nature of the errors, these errors were able to be corrected as part of the audit process. And because they were corrected, they had achieved no material findings to be included in our in their audit reports. I think it's important as well to highlight that the performance performance information is important for assessing performance over a period of time, looking back in terms of what has been what have been the targets that have been set for the year, but it's also an important tool to use during the year to monitor the performance of the entity during the year and to take corrective action when necessary. So where internal controls are not operating effectively during the year, it could impact on some of the decisions that are taken based on the information that is reported. So therefore, we are saying that it is important for these entities to ensure that the internal controls are strong enough to have no errors during the year so that they can use reliable information to make decisions on how they would achieve eventually the targets that have been set. So that was essentially then what has been reported in the audit report in respect of performance information. With the slide, we also then move on to the analysis of key performance indicators linked to key service delivery objectives. So with the graph that we've included in the table, what we try to do here is just to determine for all the indicators that have been included in the annual performance plan, how much of the targets were achieved and how much has not been achieved as a high-level overview. We noted as part of this process that there were 3 water boards that managed to achieve performance above 81% of the total targets, being Makhali's at water at 95%, Overberg water at 85%, and Mgeni at 84%, and Umhlatuzi at 81%. Apologies, there were 4 water boards that were able to achieve that. We then move on to some of the key indicators that we've analyzed further in our reports. These are not all of them. We had selected specific indicators that we considered to be material to the service delivery mandate of the Water Board, and we've analyzed them further in the report. What is important to note is that the department is overall responsible for ensuring that there is or has a responsibility of oversight, over the water boards. And as part of this process, they have provided some guidance a few years ago in terms of trying to standardize the indicators and targets that are included in the annual performance plan. Through the audit, we've noted that that guidance is not always implemented at a water board level. We have reported this to the department as well, and have also recommended that they enforce compliance with specific guidance to ensure that there is consistency across the water boards. So just something to keep in mind. We'll also highlight some of the areas where there was inconsistency in the reporting of some of the indicators and targets. Okay, so the first performance indicator relates to water quality. It is, in terms of the constitution, it is important that the water that is being provided to communities and to residents is safe to drink. In terms of the Water Services Act, the minister is responsible for prescribing the specific standards that are necessary for water service authorities to comply with. And in terms of that, SANS 241, South African National Standards, 241 has been determined to be the standard that all water service authorities should be complying with. With this particular indicator, all of the water boards have measured the quality of the water that they provide. We have indicated in this slide 3 water boards that had challenges with achieving the requirements of the standard. Maybe just quickly in terms of background of how the standard is applied. So essentially, In terms of complying with the standard, there are various indicators that the water board will need to comply with, and within each indicator, if, for example, we look at micro compliance, there are various other determinants that will make up that indicator. The water quality is usually tested at a lab site, and in terms of the targets that have been set, and then the actual performance, what is important to note is that it's not an indication of what has occurred throughout the year, at the end of the year or during the year. It is really rather an average of the various readings that were taken throughout the year. The water quality is tested at least on a weekly basis to determine whether it complies with the standard, and then the number that you see there is essentially an average of what has been achieved over the year. So it was noted that at Lepelle, they did not comply with two of the indicators, being micro compliance and operational compliance, where they've indicated challenges with a shortage of chlorine gas in the country, which contributed to their non-achievement of the target. At Overberg, they have indicated that they had challenges with pipelines and reservoirs running empty, increasing the microbiological risks caused by flooding due to heavy rain. And at Sedibeng, they did not comply as a result of design limitations and inadequate filtration at a treatment plant. We've also indicated that the reasons that we provided are reasons that management have provided in their annual reports, and that further information on this can also be found in the annual reports of the water boards themselves. We move on then to water losses. Again, a significant indicator for the sector as a whole. We had noticed when we met with you a month ago and we reported on avoidable water losses that this is quite a significant challenge for the sector as a whole. With this particular indicator, all water boards have reported on the management of avoidable water losses. And we've noted that 4 of the 9 water boards were able to achieve the targets that have been set. With respect to the table, we've indicated the challenge that we had with this looking at avoidable water losses is that we noted that for the sector as a whole, the department has not determined what would be the standard or the standard target that everyone should be working towards in terms of avoidable water losses. The target is determined by each of the water boards themselves, and we noted quite a large variance between or among all of the water boards in terms of the targets that have been set. We noted that there were 4 water boards that had targeted avoidable water losses of less than or equal to 5%. And they were able to achieve this. But we noted that some of the other water boards had set targets for as high as 14%. Some of them were 10%, but it was not clear as to how these targets were set and why there was such a big discrepancy. In terms of the non-achievement, we noted that Amatola had indicated that illegal connections on networks and pipelines was a significant challenge for them. They also noted that the repairs to pipe breakages and level control units also took a long time, which contributed again to the water losses. At Bloemwater, they had hydrostatic pressure testing that impacted unavoidable water losses. Overbear seems to be, a common reason through these indicators, where they have cited challenges due to severe flooding. And Sedibeng had indicated that their water losses were due to aging infrastructure that was not maintained or upgraded. So overall, in terms of root causes, avoidable water losses really have been attributed to the aging water infrastructure, inadequate investment in infrastructure, inadequate maintenance of infrastructure, and illegal connections. In the report, you'll probably see it a lot clearer than in this slide, but we have collected information from each of the water boards to determine the kiloliters of water that have been lost during the year, noting that this would be avoidable water losses. We do note that as part of the distribution process, that there is a certain element of unavoidable water losses, but in this case, the water boards have been reporting on avoidable water losses. So in total, there is 74.6 million kiloliters that have been lost in the system. And what we try to do here is to use the current tariffs that they would charge water to the municipalities to quantify what could be potential revenue that has been lost. And we have determined that amount to be 794 million rands that has potentially been lost to the sector in terms of water losses. Thank you, Chair. We'll then move on to the reliability of supply, where essentially the water boards will be measuring the number of days of interruption of supply. Okay, quite a significant indicator if we consider the lived experience of the citizens, because interruptions in the supply of water places significant hardships on residents and communities. Even if we consider hospitals, industries, businesses that rely on water. So I think this is also something that has been in the news recently, especially here in Gauteng, where a lot of the time consumers will be going a number of days without a supply, having to rely on water tankers. So it presents quite a challenge. So we further noted that even though the water board does not supply water directly to the consumer or the end user, in most cases, it's the responsibility of the municipality. However, where water boards have a challenge, it has the potential to impact significantly on the ability of the municipality to be able to supply to the consumers or to the end users. So something that's why we consider this to be a very relevant indicator to the public as a whole. In terms of the results of the performance reported, we noted that 5 water boards were able to achieve the targets that they had set for themselves. There were 3 water boards that did not achieve that target. We noted that Umgeni Water had targeted 0 days of interrupted supply and had reported that 10.45 days of interruptions occurred due to burst water pipes and cable theft. Overbear had targeted 0 days of supply and reported 17 days of interruptions, again due to burst water pipes resulting from the flood. And Sedibeng had targeted 0 days and had reported 19 days of interruptions due to aging infrastructure. We also wanted to highlight that Rand Water had reported 0 days of water interruption, but we noted that there was a difference in the manner in which Rand Water had structured its indicator and its target. Essentially, Rand Water had defined its indicator to be the unplanned water interruptions of longer than 24 hours. It was significantly different to the other 8 water boards as it did not measure planned water interruptions and unplanned interruptions of less than 24 hours. Accordingly, we're saying that maybe, there is an element of impact on the experiences of the consumers where you have planned interruptions that take a significantly long time, but that is not being measured in this indicator. So maybe it's important for the department to start looking again at how the indicators are structured across the water boards so that we are achieving some consistency across all of the water boards and that the indicators and the targets directly talk to the experience of the consumers in terms of how they achieve the reliability of supply. Thank you. We then move on to increased access to services. When we met with you as well in September, we did discuss the challenges that the sector was having in terms of backlogs of provision of water services, where we noted that approximately 2.2 million consumers or 2.2 million households, did not have access to water in the sense of a tap in the house to provide them with water. So there are various initiatives that have been planned to increase access to services. It is part of the national objectives, and water boards do support this process in terms of some of the projects that they have been undertaking. So this indicator links back to some of the key projects to allow or to achieve some of the objectives related to increasing access to services. We noted, again, in terms of consistency, that there were 2 water boards that did not report on this in their annual performance plans, being Overberg and Umgeni Water. For the others, we've noted that there were 6 water boards, apologies. There were 6 water boards that did not achieve the targets that have been set. 2 of them had cited COVID-19 as challenges that resulted in these projects being delayed. And Lepele and Machalis had indicated that there were operational challenges with achieving the timelines that have been set, and Rand Water did not report actual performance because they had not performed any work in relating to these projects, indicating that there were no specific requests from external parties for this type of projects. So as this indicator specifically relates to the investments in infrastructure and infrastructure projects, we also just highlighting that it is important for all of the water boards to consider what the root causes are for the project management challenges that exist at the water boards. Delays in the projects ultimately mean that there is a delay in the expected service to these households that don't have water, and therefore delays mean that there needs to be an action plan to be able to get back on track and to try to deliver those services as soon as possible. So this is something that the water boards and the department need to consider in terms of taking corrective action for delays that have been experienced. As part of our water sector audit, we have recognized that asset management is quite a key part of the service delivery process. And with the next two slides, we're looking at what we've identified around repairs and maintenance and then capital projects. If we look at repairs and maintenance, I think with this one, we have noted that this also plays a significant role in terms of the amount of water that is lost through the system. And therefore, the importance of repairs and maintenance and ensuring that we are maintaining in accordance with the plan that has been set out is extremely important. From an audit perspective, our expectation is that there would be an asset maintenance plan that will set out for the water board what is required to maintain an asset to ensure that it can perform optimally over the life of the asset. So that is also something that we'll continue to explore with the next cycle. But we've noted that for the indicator that has been included in the annual performance plan, the measure is the percentage, the actual cost of repairs and maintenance as a percentage of assets. So with that, the water boards have set various targets for repairs and maintenance as a percentage of assets, and they've measured themselves in terms of how much have they actually maintained from a rand value perspective. There were 6 water boards that did not achieve the targets that had been set for repairs and maintenance. And with Amatola Water, they have indicated that there were significant delays in the procurement process. Bloem Water had indicated that scheduled maintenance was deferred due to inadequate cash available to be able to meet the requirements for repairs and maintenance. Lepele had cited a shortage of technical resources to carry out repairs and maintenance. Rand Water had indicated that the underspending was mainly due to funds that had to be redirected for other important projects. Sedibeng had liquidity issues, not enough cash available, and Umhlatuzi had indicated vacancies and disruptions due to COVID as reasons for not achieving the targets for the year. Again, when assets are not maintained regularly, it is important that there is an appropriate plan that is put in place to be able to catch up on the backlogs of maintenance. So this is the expectation for the next cycle. So it's something that we'll have to consider with the next year to see what action plans were in place to address the non-achievement of maintenance on assets. If we move on to capital projects that are ongoing at the water boards, we have noted delays at 5 of them. So Amatola had indicated COVID-19 lockdown regulations as a challenge. Lepele had indicated that there were challenges with strikes, service delivery protests, supply chain management challenges experienced. Umgeni Water had indicated challenges with COVID-19 restrictions and challenges with contractors going into business rescue. Rand Water had challenges with contractor supervision and management, and Mshatuzzi Water had indicated delays in project implementation. Even considering the COVID-19 issues that occurred during the year, similar to the previous indicator, we are saying that essentially the root cause for delays in projects will come down to how the project is managed to ensure that challenges experienced are appropriately dealt with, and that there is revised targets to ensure that the projects come back on track, or come back on track within a reasonable time to be able to achieve the objectives that have been set out with the capital projects. We have been also, we also want to maybe highlight that with this round in the 2021 year, we have performed quite a high level analysis of the capital projects. With the 21-22 audits, we have increased the scope of the work that we've done to specifically zone in on capital projects or key capital projects and water boards. So we're hoping that with the next round, we'll be able to give you more detail in terms of, the specific delays experienced within the projects itself. So overall, in terms of performance management, we've included 3 recommendations. The first one is to the department, which is ultimately responsible for overseeing the water boards and for driving consistent performance, that it is important that they update their guidance on the indicators and targets for water boards, that in reviewing the annual performance plans of the water boards, that they also enforce consistency, so that all of the water boards are working towards the priorities that the department have determined to be key for the year under review. We've also indicated that credible performance information is important for the sector. We are also recommending that for those entities that experience challenges in reporting credible or reliable performance information, that they need to relook at the internal control environment to ensure that this is strengthened to enable reliable reporting throughout the period. And thirdly, it is important for water boards to analyze the root causes for not achieving their targets and develop action plans to improve on those critical service delivery areas. So again, it's about ensuring that corrective action is taken where targets are not achieved. Thank you, Chair. I think with that, we move on to the next section of our report, which relates to financial management. With this section, we started off by providing some information on the revenue share and asset base of the water boards. It was intended to maybe just provide a picture of the contribution that each water board is making towards the provision of bulk water, and to give you an idea of the size of these water boards. Looking at the information, you'll see that Rand Water actually stands out from all of the other water boards as the largest, significantly larger than the second largest water board, being Umgeni Water, where we note that Rand Water has a revenue share of 16.6 billion. And an asset base of 37.3 billion. Okay, so just some information for the committee to get a sense of, of the size of these water boards. We also, in this section, talk about the quality of financial statements that have been submitted. Similar to performance information, the ability to produce credible financial statements is important for ensuring that decisions or important financial decisions are made based on reliable information. So again, something that we also report on in our audit reports. We noted that Sedibeng Water did not provide or submit its financial statement by the legislated date, being the end of August, due to challenges experienced in preparing their financial statements. It was submitted much later, probably around February of 2022, but fortunately the audit was concluded before we finalized this report, so its results were included in here. We also, in terms of the other water boards, we've identified material errors in the financial statements of 6 of the water boards, and 4 of them were able to make corrections based on the nature of the errors that we'd identified, and as a result of these corrections, they were able to achieve unqualified opinions. For 2 water boards, being Amatola and Sedibeng Water, the errors that we identified were quite significant in terms of the amount of work that needed to be done to make corrections, and as a result, they were not able to correct their errors, and this had resulted in qualifications on these 2 water boards. Okay. We then move on to financial health. For us, this was quite a significant section for us to consider, because the water boards earn revenue through the sale of water. They need to be financially independent, and they need to manage their financial affairs in such a way that it would allow them to be financially viable over the long term, to enable them to provide the services that they are required to. In looking at financial health, if we look at the top block, you'd see the bar graph there. That is essentially the assessment that we have made as the Auditor-General in terms of our methodology of where we see the financial health of these water boards. So in the green block, those are entities that have 2 or fewer unfavorable indicators. The blue block shows those water boards that have more than 2 unfavorable indicators. And in the brown block, we have Sedibeng, where we have identified going concern risks over the last 2 years at least. So overall, in looking at the financial health, we noted an improvement in the green block, where Overberg and Mchalis were able to improve on their financial health, specifically their liquidity positions, in order to achieve 2 or fewer unfavorable indicators. So overall, we're saying, well, that has been an improvement. I think in terms of Sedibeng, the committee is aware of the challenges that have been experienced at Sedibeng for a number of years, resulting in the disestablishment of Sedibeng that was announced in July of this year. Okay, we've also included in the slide some of the indicators that we have considered and the water boards that were impacted. So in terms of the sustainability of the water boards, we noted that Lepile and Amatola had reported a deficit, meaning that the expenditure that has been incurred during the year had exceeded the revenue that they had earned. And that represents 22% of all of the water boards, but something that the water boards will have to consider going forward in terms of how they manage the income versus the expenditure that is incurred. We noted creditors as a percentage of cash being greater than 100%, meaning that in the case of Pele and Sedibeng, the amount of cash would not have been sufficient to pay all of the creditors as soon as they become due. And this is significant because creditors are short-term liabilities and would usually need to be paid within 30 days. In terms of revenue management, we'll also, in the next slide, also just talk a little bit about debt collection. It remains a challenge for the water boards. We've noted at 6 water boards that the time it takes to collect debt from customers is greater than 90 days. Most of these are municipalities, but we'll talk to that. And the average debt collection period across all the water boards is 330 days, which is almost a full year to collect debt. Creditor payment period greater than 30 days was noted at all of the water boards. This is usually a concern for us because I think the sustainability of the creditors is impacted by the ability of the water boards to pay them within the norm of 30 days. So again, something that the water boards will need to work on. And the average creditor payment period was at 341 days. Maybe just in the interest of time, we have included detail on some of the more of the important indicators and ratios in the report itself. With this slide, maybe just to indicate that the debt to equity ratio essentially measures total debt against total equity. We noted that the water boards generally do not have a lot of long-term debt. The debt is usually short-term, but we did not identify any significant challenges in terms of debt to equity ratio, as they were maintained a ratio that is, above the industry accepted norms, or the accepted norms that we've accepted and used, which is 0.5:1. Current ratio would measure then the ability of the water board to repay its debt in the short term. We're looking at creditors essentially. And with the current ratio, we are measuring current assets against current liabilities. And we noted that 6 water boards were above the general norm of 2:1. When we noted that Amatola water, Lepele water, and Sedibeng water were below the norm. However, it was not concerning at this stage, so we do not raise it as a significant issue affecting their viability. We've included some information on debtors' days and creditors' days so that you can see the water boards that are, have significantly long days, noting that with debtors' days, their debtors' days are also tied to the financial health of the municipalities that they would service. In regard to the municipalities, in the report and with the slide, we've tried to provide a little bit more information in terms of the composition of the debtors, of the receivables at year end. And through our analysis, we've identified that for water boards, the municipalities are still their main customers. In terms of receivables, they make up more than 80% of receivables at 6 of the 9 water boards. And I think a challenge for the water boards is going to be how do they manage the collection of debt from municipalities, noting that a certain part of this might be outside of their control, but it is important that the water board determines, how are they going to manage the relationship with the municipalities and to develop an agreement or a repayment agreement or some other mechanisms that they will use to ensure that they are eventually recovering money from the municipalities. And then with the second graph that's included in there, we also tried to provide an indication of the debtor days being greater than 60 days. We've also tried to include information on how much of the municipal debt has been impaired due to where management considers that these amounts are not recoverable. So, I think with this, specific challenge for the water boards, and it's something that they will have to manage very closely in the future. Okay, moving on, we'll quickly go through then the audit outcomes. In terms of the snapshot for the water board sector, we've identified 2 clean audits. 7 of them, of the water boards, were financially unqualified, but with findings on compliance. We had we're also indicating that there were 7 water boards that did not have any findings on the performance reports. The 2 that did have findings were Amatola and Sedibeng. We had 2 entities that had no findings on compliance with legislation, and that will be the 2 clean audits of Makhalis and Overbear. And then we've got irregular expenditure that for the sector as a whole had a balance of 7.2 billion rands. Okay, with the next slide, I'm just going to give you a very high level. We have shown a comparison between the 2021 year and the 2019-20 financial years, or 3 years essentially, but maybe just focusing on the 2 years to indicate what the movement was. In 2019-20, Mshlatuzi and Makhalis were clean. And when we moved to 2021, Mshlatuzi had regressed because they had findings on compliance with legislation, and Overbear had improved to a clean audit. So there has been no movement in terms of the clean audits. And if we look at the purple block on qualified with findings, so essentially in this block, Amatola and Sedibeng were the 2 audits that remained qualified during the period, and all of the other water boards had also maintained their status of unqualified with findings. A lot more detail included in the report itself, so I'm not going to go through the detail on that. Maybe just the second last slide. We also included information on irregular expenditure. Irregular expenditure essentially relates to non-compliance with the legislation, but it has the effect of essentially the entities that are not complying, not always adhering to some of the key priorities of government, or it could have the effect that goods and services are procured at prices that are not the most economical, or where we receive goods and services that are not of the required standard. So it's something that I think government as a whole has been experiencing challenges with. With this slide, we indicate that if we look at irregular expenditure that has been incurred for the year, there has been a decrease of 41% from 3.2 billion in 1920 to 1.9 billion in 2021. So quite a significant drop, but I think also the 1.9 billion is still quite significant. So the sector still has a way to go in terms of improving the internal control environment to prevent such irregular expenditure. We noted that the top 3 contributors to irregular expenditure were Umgeni Water at 511 million, Rand Water at 301 million, and Sedibeng Water at 272 million. We also indicated, what percentage that represents of the total expenditure that would have been subjected to the procurement process. And so at Umgeni Water, it was 39% of total expenditure, Rand Water 32%, and Sedibeng Water at 15% of total expenditure. Important for the committee to note as well is that Amatola Water and Sedibeng Water were qualified on the completeness of irregular for both years. So even though we have a number in this table, we are saying that potentially there are other instances of irregular expenditure that has not been reported and included. We further noted that the balance on irregular expenditure had increased from 5.3 billion to 7.2 billion. Essentially, this means that the balance or the irregular expenditure of prior years has not been adequately investigated and recommendations made and implemented to allow for a consequence management process to occur. And because these entities have not adequately dealt with prior year irregular expenditure, the balance on irregular expenditure has been increasing. We noted that there were significant delays in finalizing investigations into irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure at Umgeni Water, Sedibeng Water, and Amatola Water, and these three entities had compliance paragraphs included in their audit reports. Maybe if we could talk to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Again, fruitless and wasteful expenditure implies that money has been spent, but no benefit has been received in respect of that cost that has flown out of the entity. For the 1920 year, we had identified 264 million rands worth of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and this had increased to 296 million in 2021. We noted that 7 of the 9 water boards had reported fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and the key or the top 3 then were Sedibeng Water with 268 million, Amatola Water with 14.5 million, and Umgeni Water with 7.4 million. Sorry, the fourth one there is Lepele Northern Water with 4.3 million. That's, essentially that was the majority of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. With respect to fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we will continue to follow up on possible MIs with the following year's audit. So it's something that we will continue to look at in terms of reporting material irregularities. For the year under review, there was only one material irregularity that had been reported by the date that the audit report was signed off, and that related to Umgeni Water, where an irregularity amounting to 86 million rand was identified, where a contract was awarded to a supplier for consulting services. And we noted that the supplier was not properly evaluated, and the award was made to the supplier that did not score the highest points, but also the price that was paid was higher than the correct supplier. And as a result, there was a financial loss of 3.56 million rands. So that is an MI that had been reported, and the team will continue to evaluate the progress that the entity or Umgeni Water is making against the material irregularity that has been reported. So we will be able to provide you with feedback when we come back to you with the results of the next year's audit. Okay, so with with this slide, we essentially indicate what we have determined to be the key root causes and the recommendations relating to that. So if we look at financial management specifically, we're saying that irregular expenditure is a concern for the water board. It is important that they all consider the internal controls that have been designed. It is important to strengthen the internal controls over the prevention of irregular expenditure to reduce the 1.9 billion in the next year. We also note that financial statements at a number of the water boards were submitted with errors. Errors would affect the credibility of financial information presented at the end of the financial year, but also during the financial year. And it's important that the water boards would improve their review and monitoring controls to improve on the credibility of the financial statements. For all of the findings that we've identified, we do recommend that the water boards prepare action plans to address them, ensuring that the action plans adequately address the root causes, that these action plans are implemented, and that the action plans are monitored by the leadership of the entity, as well as by audit committees and other governance structures. And we've also identified, it wasn't prevalent though, but at some of the water boards that there was inadequate record management practices where we could not get information in some cases. And that is something that those water boards need to have a look at. I think with that, I'm going to then hand back to my business unit leader. Thank you, Andries.
Thank you, Jolene. Thank you for the detailed presentation, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. So there we have it. That's the report summarized. So the last slide that I'm going to deal with is just our call to action. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, you would recall the slide on your, or the picture on your top left-hand screen is the one that we shared with the members when we're doing the BRRR session, basically just talking to the accountability ecosystems in terms of the stakeholders that are involved. So, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, the sustainable provision of water of sufficient and quality water has a direct impact on the lives of the citizens. And therefore, as a result of this, it will remain quite a critical and strategic imperative and focus area of the Office of the AG. So therefore, we call on all the stakeholders who are involved to accelerate the improvements in this accountability ecosystem. So the improvements, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, that we seek are really not ones that are difficult or that only reside within the domain of the accounting officers or management or the accounting authorities or the auditors. It will require all of us, entire eco accountability ecosystem, all the multitude of all the role plays at all the different levels, the leadership, people who are responsible for the decision making, people who are responsible to support and provide interventions and oversight, to play their part in making sure that we effectively enable a culture of accountability in a sustainable and meaningful way. Honorable Chair, to that effect, we've included a number of recommendations that we've made to management. So from a management point of view, the detail is there. We just really require management to make sure that as they take their decision making and implement their day-to-day activities, that they make sure that they take heed of the weaknesses and deficiencies that have been highlighted in terms of the internal control weaknesses that resulted in the findings, and they must make sure that they implement appropriate action plans to address these root causes and weaknesses, and make sure that, you know, once these weaknesses or action plans that are going to be implemented to address the weaknesses must make sure that they address the lived or uplift the lived realities of the citizens on the ground to promote effective and efficient service delivery. There's also a number of other role players, like we've mentioned, like your audit committees, those charged with governance, the accounting officer of the national department, as well as the accounting authorities of all the water boards, to make sure that they also ensure that appropriate audit action plans are implemented and the root causes are adequately addressed. And they must make sure that where our officials transgress as part of the execution of the day-to-day activities, that they also implement and effect effective consequence management. And then the executive authority or the minister really monitor the progress of the implementation of all these initiatives, various initiatives by the accounting officer, the accounting authorities, all the water boards, making sure that they also implement effective and timely consequence management, which is actually a legal requirement in terms of the PFMA for the high levels of irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure that's incurred in the sector. And then we'd also appreciate if the minister can then take the feedback that would then be provided by the water boards to make sure that the minister takes that feedback, understands it, unpacks it, and is in a position to understand where intervention is required based on timely feedback. It's one thing to get feedback, but it's one thing if you get it late and you're not able to intervene in that regard. And then the one other thing that we'd also request from the minister is to make sure that all the efforts of the sector are coordinated. I think it's one thing that the minister has demonstrated, already started to demonstrate or show some keen interest and some progress in, and that's the ability for the executive authority to really want to invest in coordinating the efforts of the sector. Honorable Chair, honorable members, you would recall right in the beginning of the presentation, we showed you the water value chain, and in order for the value chain to be effectively implemented, it relies, as we've mentioned multiple times, on a number of various stakeholders at different points in times, at different intervals. So therefore, it requires a deliberate and consistent and effective effort of collaboration and coordination in this regard. Honorable Chair, honorable members, thank you for having allowed us the opportunity to present to you. We will now take questions, comments, or inputs in terms of the presentation and the topic at hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sekhetho and Mrs. Jolene, for your presentation. I've done this deliberately just to members to understand the challenges that the water boards are facing, and so that they can be able to deal with these issues when they interact with these water boards and the department going forward. Members, any input, question, comment? Members, are you still around? Are you still connected? Honorable members of parliament.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh,
Good morning.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Mashego, welcome. And I see the hand of Honorable Nancy Sihlwayi. Honorable Mashego, I'm not quite sure whether you want to make an input or you were just greeting.
No. I've just managed to log in. So I was just making my presence. I didn't hear anything.
Okay, thanks very much. Listen to and thank you for connecting. Honorable Sihlwayi.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable the Chair of the meeting. Greetings to Honorable Robert Mashego. It's good to hear your voice, Buddy. We appreciate God is good all the time. Listening to the presentation of the AG, I always get sometimes confused with the excitement of the analysis of the AG. And in the process, I get confused that they must stay with us in terms of the action plans to address their findings. I just want to speak on the performance management, the root causes. What is the view of the AG in terms of the possible root causes, are they maybe on the basis of the wrong indicators and the targets? Are they maybe based on the indicators and targets that are presented by the individual water board? Because if that is the case, they will continue to have to perform lesser if they are not actual in terms of these two measurements. I just want to check from the AG, is there such an assessment? Because some of them, they have consecutive years of non-achievement in terms of their targets based on their indicators. Getting to the issue of the chlorine, I wish perhaps the department in their action plan, they could discuss the matter, because this cut across the country as an area of scarcity with its key role in terms of the health of the water. I'm putting that to the department to discuss this issue, that the country does not have chlorine, and then we continue to depend on it for access of health water to our people. The Overback, and in terms of the root cause, it speaks about the heavy rain that has caused the issue of microbiological. This could be a every year thing. Perhaps in the action plan of Overback, they need to look on the matter, because that's a natural issue that will continue to happen and cause this challenge of the microbiological risk within. They need to discuss on how best can we plan for it within its action plan. The reliability of supply of the boards in terms of that they depend to the municipality for supply. I get confused here on that, because I want to tie that with the issue that says municipalities are the main customers of water boards. They are main customers of the water boards. And therefore, they are reliable to its supply to the municipalities. I'm having a confusion, Chair. Perhaps somebody needs to clarify that for me. Why I have got that is because the boards are the assets of national department. Could you be able to discuss that better so that we clarify ourselves on the matter? Sedbank had a zero plan of the reliability of their supply, but they had about 19 days in the action plan. It's just that that's why I was saying that I wish the HE could be in the department, because the issue of this action plan on the matter needs to be thoroughly discussed on the basis of activities. What are the issues that would make us to address this so that we don't reach the 19 days? The asset management, in terms of the root causes, mainly on the board, they talk about the procurement delays. I wish that perhaps the department could bring back the action plan on such of the issues, because this solely depends on how the financial planning has been created, and also on the issue of the discretionary fund, which will be the intervention fund when you are confronted with such. These will always come, but the financial planning needs to have a pre-planning on such. The second to the last, Chair, is the performance, the outstanding performance on social issues, which has caused a lack of performance. They expected 75%, they got 0. It's important that we get that action plan. How are they going to deal with those issues? Because these will always come. It can't be a expectation of 7% and then there's only 0. Please. I heard that there is an official chair from AG that works with the department. And maybe I need to be corrected if I didn't hear correctly. That excites me, because we should work together towards a better action plan on the matter. The creditors. The 30 days payment seems to be a challenge, but in that presentation I saw that they are only managing 34 or 341 days. Can you assist me? There's something that I didn't understand. Is it 34 or 341 days? Now, then they need to discuss, because this is a policy decision of government in all levels. Are they saying this is consistent in the board that we're only managing 34 days? Can they put a clarity, try to convince us that they can't because of this and that, so that we see if this is not practical? The audit outcomes. This is the last one, Chair. Thank you. The audit outcomes. The Lapele and Matola, their action plans, it really, they need to improve. They've got consistency of not responding to yearly action plans for them to recover. There is a need of a focus on them. Not saying others are quite correct, but I'm looking on the consistency, more especially in terms of not responding on their action plans, so that they better themselves to be effective in terms of their role. Those are the few issues that I wanted to raise. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the hand of Honorable Khanif and Honorable Mushala. Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the reports of the Attorney-General's office gets better year after year, and it's very encouraging to see how they highlight areas for improvement and how they are trying to save the taxpayers' money. However, we are aware of the fact for the last 10 years, while the auditor's reports are getting better and there's deeper insight, that the corruption increases year after year, the looting increases year after year, and we also are aware of the fact that the previous Minister of Water Affairs, Minister Sisulu, sent nearly over 100 cases of corruption to the NPA for prosecution. I'm not sure what the present minister is going to do, but I'm sure that on his visits all over, he must have also identified that corruption and looting continues, and the corruption and looting takes place and involves even the person who does the testing, right up to the most senior persons in the Department of Water and Sanitation, also the consultants that we use, the water boards, you name it. So I would like to ask the question, Honorable Chair, isn't it by time that the Attorney General's office puts more bite into their reports and, for example, report back to this portfolio committee that the last time we mentioned anomalies, corruption, looting, and we have identified that action has been taken. There has been so many people charged in court. There are 3 people in jail wearing overalls. And then also I would expect, now that we have made tremendous progress with the leadership of the presidency to end corruption, that the Auditor-General will give some hope to the country to say that now that all the loopholes has been plugged and there's more oversight and more vigilance, that the money that the fiscus provides for water, and we're talking about water at this particular meeting, if there is no looting and no corruption, it means that we will be able to assist more and more people, and so many people, to open their taps in their backyards and get water. So I am very sorry to say that I am not at all impressed with the work that the Attorney General's office is doing. Professionally, we can't fault it. But if it doesn't make an impact and provide more people with water in their taps in their backyards, then it is, I won't say a waste of time, but they're not carrying out their mandates. I would like to know what the Attorney General is going to do in their, what they can do in their future reports to make sure that what they bring to the attention of this portfolio committee, what they bring to the attention of Parliament, what they bring to the nation has consequences, has benefits for the country, because Parliament pays a lot of money to run an Attorney General's office. It's by time that we get value for our buck. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khanif. Honorable Sala.
No, thanks so much, Chairperson. I've got some few questions. We also want to welcome the report, because this is the report that normally enlighten us concerning the work of the department in various places. So my question is, in most instances, municipalities are blamed for water quality and also for the water losses. But my question is, why? But don't water boards also have an obligation to report and ensure remedial action of challenges of to the Department of Water and Sanitation, who are ultimately responsible for the entire water value chain? And more specifically, as a sector leader and a regulator. Because every time we come here, the municipalities are the ones that are failing us with regards to this and this, but we have water boards, which actually they're supposed to be making sure that there's remedial action or also report those challenges to the department And the department, as the overseer of everything, I think they must do something in that regard. We don't have to wait until when we are at this stage, and then we get reported that the failure is on the municipalities. So, in your opinion, don't you think that more concerned citizens, is another question, will go to court to be granted an interim order to take over infrastructure operations for water supply? For example, in the Northwest, in Swartrugens and Koster, there was an improvement when community took over the project. When Magali's board took over in Koster, water supply fell short. So we want to know whether, don't you think this thing will cause more concerned citizens going to court to be granted an interim order to take over the infrastructures? Because it seems like the boards are failing. Actually, the community is the one that are willing to do work over the boards that actually have an authority to do that. I also saw on the report a section speaking about Sidibeng, where they targeted that in 0 days, they will have no, they were targeting that they don't have interrupted water supply. And then it was saying that with regards to them, it will be 0 days. But when they go to the reason why there was interruptions, they are saying it is because of the aging infrastructure. The aging infrastructure did not just start. They knew that there is an aging infrastructure, an infrastructure that cannot take cannot provide. They go and set a target of 0 interruption. We understand when the people put 0 interruption in terms of reasons like in other boards where they are saying best of water pipes and theft, which are reasons that are unforeseen. But in this regards, they've got an aging infrastructure, an infrastructure that cannot do anything, a dead infrastructure, but they go and put a target of 0. And then today, when we are sitting here, we hear a report of such nature. So we want to know if really these targets that they are setting for themselves, it seems like they just set target without even checking or even evaluating whether the system will be able to do all those things they're talking about. So it really, I could not understand when they say the problem is the aging infrastructure, because the aging infrastructure cannot just age overnight. This means they knew when they set that target that this infrastructure is dead, but they said our focus is to make sure that in 0 days we don't have interruption. So it seems like now here we have been fooled, or they just set a target for the sake of just setting the targets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mhlali. Thank you very much, Mhlali, for your questions. Honorable Tseki. Tseki, I see your hand.
Chairperson, thank you. Chair, the presenter, I think at the beginning of the presentation, identify what she called serial incidents, which you sometimes call repetitive incidents. I think as a committee, we're struggling to find a better way of addressing this serial, because of maybe it's how the department reports on consequence management. Can maybe the Office of the AG give us some thoughts of how the committee could be strengthened to force the department to implement consequence management? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tseki, direct to the point. whilst the Auditor General is responding to the issues, I think we must also note, honorable members, that this year, I think it's 2022, but I see Mem Toko Sigwaza is connected, and I think I'll give her time to respond to other issues. Somewhere around this year, the minister made a commitment to review the water boards to enable them to perform optimally whilst enhancing the delivery of water to municipalities and ultimately to the houses. So this year, the Citibank Water Board, I think it was disestablished due to issues of governance and financial viabilities. And this is a confirmation, the presentation that we got today of 2020-2021, I think it's a confirmation that yes, Citibank was facing some challenges in terms of governance and financial issues. Therefore, from my side, I agree with the minister in terms of what she has done of disestablishing this Citibank. I think it was meshed with, it's going to be meshed, or it was meshed with Bloem Water Board and Magalies. So far, Magalies is doing well. Magalies is doing well, and Overbeck is doing well. And I think we want to appreciate that work. I just wanted to make that input so that going forward, we then understand the politics around Citibank, that we don't have it as we are speaking, or the process is on in terms of its review. And we want to appreciate the minister for that work, because we couldn't even continue to work with this Citibank as it was with the challenges it was facing. But I would then request I think with my other questions, Mom's Troy has covered me. I would then give it over to the Auditor General's team to respond to the questions and the inputs that were raised by members. But also agreeing to say, I think we must make sure that we continue with our oversight with regard to our interaction with these water boards, especially those that are having some challenges. Your Amatola, your Lepele, I think it should be our responsibility as the portfolio committee if we have time. It's unfortunate that the time that we have in the portfolio committees are too limited. We've never given them enough time to interact with them, just to get an understanding on the challenges that they're facing. But we will then request the chairperson in the 2021-2022 just to have secured that time to interact with the water boards directly, so that we can get a better understanding of their work. Thanks. Over to you, Mr. Sekheto and Ms. Rajaswari.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, thank you for the comments as well. I think the closing comments, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, you actually just also reminded me as you were making your comments around the interventions by the minister. We didn't mention upfront, so I'll mention it right now upfront. We actually, as part of this process, Honorable Chair, part of the consultation in delivering the report, we also requested some high-level feedback from the committee. The report would have then been distributed. It looked a bit different in terms of the colors, but that's it's just we were finalizing the report. But we did ask for some commitments from the committee, and we duly received the commitments from the committee as well. So we really appreciate that as well. That was done through the office of the chairperson. It's just unfortunate that by the time we were tabling the report, we couldn't reflect fully on all of those commitments, but we have received them and we do appreciate them. Equally, so, and likewise, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, we also did receive commitments and a very detailed and comprehensive action plan from the National Accounting Officer, Dr. Sean Phillips, in terms of some of these weaknesses that we've identified and the department's intervention or planned intervention to look at how it can also, as Honorable Chair mentioned, as the party that's ultimately responsible for the collaboration, coordination, implementation and delivery of water in the country, how they would also then assist the water boards in terms of those detailed actions or implementation of those detailed actions to address the deficiencies reported in this report. So I thought, let me just also acknowledge that the Minister was also very accessible in terms of the engagements as we're preparing the report. Like you mentioned as well by yourself just now in your closing remarks, Honorable Zeke, that the report is for the 2021 financial year. So there was a lot of engagement from when we finalized the audit already then to sharing the outcomes with the Minister, the accounting authorities, the boards, as well as the National Department Accounting Officer. So the Minister and the DG, they've always been accessible. Yeah, sometimes we arm wrestle and sometimes we'll have not so nice conversations, but at least from an availability point of view, they've really demonstrated a willingness and appetite to deal with it, to the extent, like I mentioned, of also having submitted a very comprehensive detailed plan that set forth some of the key interventions and actions per water board that the department was aiming to implement to try and remedy the situation. So we also appreciate that. And then, like I mentioned, we also got quite a nice set of commitments also from the portfolio committee, which we'll also then reflect on as we then come and report back in the follow-up report. Honorable Chair, honorable members, you would have also noted in the beginning when we did the presentation, we did note that this is a landmark report in the sense that there's never been a situation where we gave a dedicated reflection just on the water boards. Remember, I did explain that because of the differences in financial year ends, we would always finalize the PFMA general report, and then we would go and table that, and then because we would still be busy doing the water board audits. But when we were done with the water board audits, they were also not included in the MFMA or the local government general report, because the local government general report speaks to the MFMA audits, and the water boards are still PFMA audits. So it always posed this conundrum of them being like sort of the missing middle. And hence, if you also recall, when we did the opening remarks in the presentation, we took some time we spent some time when we were doing the value chain to explain the various roles and the positions and how the flow of the resource. We are trying to check it across all these intervals and across all these various role players that are involved. So therefore, like I did mention, we'll also provide some form of high-level report that consolidates all these efforts sometime in the near future, for which we are also quite excited for. Now, Honorable Chair, honorable members, if I can deal with some of the issues and the points that would have been raised by the members, I will lead some of the discussions. Jolene will assist where maybe I haven't touched a specific issue. So once I'm done, I'll hand over to her just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, or maybe one or two that will remain unanswered. Honorable Chair, honorable members, I think the first part, and I'll start work my way from the bottom up. And some of the topics are also interlinked. I think Honorable Chair mentioned it, Honorable Mutlala and Honorable Sitwai's comments were very much similar in terms of the questions that was asked, and then I'll explain why. So the first point, Honorable Chair, is the issue that you mentioned, and I think it's also asked by Honorable Teki. So the honorable member asked, what more should this committee do to ensure consequence management? So, and what more can the AG do as well? I think it will also go hand in hand with Honorable Hanif's comment. Honorable Chair, honorable members, Honorable Chair's comments were spot on. So what we would like to see the committee do, and what we would really recommend the committee still continue to invest in, is these continued engagements and interactions with the water boards. So it's one thing to have the department come and give you feedback in terms of what the water boards are saying, but it's another thing if they themselves come and account to Parliament. So that's a very good initiative, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and we would really recommend that the committee continues to invest in having those oversight interactions and interventions with those municipalities, the water boards that would have been identified. So the report that we've finished the committee with here today can serve as a good basis to identify those ones where we have highlighted some of those challenges in the various respective avenues. What are some of the engagements that we would hope the committee then engages in? Is when you then meet with them, Honorable Chair, honorable members, is to ask them, like you also eloquently mentioned, Honorable Chair, is to ask them, what are the real root causes from the horse's mouth? Why are they not doing some things with the understanding and the knowledge that we've empowered you with? Why are they not performing to the expected levels? And insofar as consequence management is concerned, I found that a very simple trick works, and that's for each respective institution to come and give you a full list of this irregular expenditure. You've seen the balances now in the amounts that we've reported, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, for them to reconcile per amount, per transgression, and say, what am I doing on this particular transgression? And then you can also decide for yourself if it's appropriate or not. And that's a very important aspect. You would recall, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, at some stage, the department itself, the Department of Water and Sanitation, was dealing with high and copious amounts of irregular expenditure. And they went to SCOPA and they reported and said, oh, we are doing consequence management. We've issued warning letters to each and every member that transgressed in this list. And then they looked, as an oversight structure, they looked at the list and said, but hold on, you are telling me you've given a final written warning to somebody who's incurred 5,000 worth of irregular expenditure, but you've given another person who's incurred 5 billion worth of irregular expenditure the same final written warning. So it shows me that you did not apply yourself, because the PFMA says, as the accounting officer or as the accounting authority, you need to do a proper investigation, because a proper investigation will assist you to do proper root cause determination. And once you have a proper root cause determination, you can use that information to then go and see which holes you must plug. Because otherwise, if you don't do a proper investigation, you don't do proper root cause analysis, it means you will not be able to then implement proper remedial actions. So your actions you're going to implement will not solve your problems. And then ultimately, based on the severity of the transgression, you must then decide on the most appropriate action because the action that you must go and implement, Honorable Chair, you also want to make sure that you influence your senior management, that you change the culture, that you get them to move in a manner that is compliant, that will then assist the portfolio to achieve its strategic objectives. So sitting with them, unpacking the proper detailed steps per the list that reconciles to the amount that they would have incurred in irregular expenditure. And you must be relentless in your efforts, because I found that when they come and they give you whatever information they will give you, call them back again, because I've seen some other oversight structures will send them back and say, no, come and give me the proper information. We will come and engage again. And you must just really be relentless in your pursuit of making sure that they do it, because ultimately, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, consequence management, unfortunately, is a legal and binding requirement of the accounting officer and the accounting authority, because it's a requirement of the PFMA. It says in the PFMA, if the institution could not prevent incurring irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure through the implementation of sound systems of internal control, it must then at least go and look for those irregular expenditure incurred where we were non-compliant, and then implement the remedial action. But to do that, you must do the proper investigation. It actually says investigation or determination. That's a legal requirement. So that's one thing that we could then request the committee to really continue, as Honorable Chair has mentioned, investing in that in terms of your engagements with the water board. So I do commend you for that. Then maybe let me also close this one off. We do appreciate all the comments that were made, and some of the comments that we are not.
You're muted. Mr. Skhethu, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, Honorable Chair. I muted myself and I turned my page over. Apologies for that. So, Chair, as I was saying, I think you probably lost me when I was talking about we do appreciate all the comments that were made and that we received, and all the feedback that we received. So, as the Office of the AG, in line with our new office strategy, we are really looking and investing some time and effort into making sure that the work that we do speaks to the heart of the citizens and the lived realities of the citizens on the ground. So that is why we also embarked on this new strategy, and we are quite excited in terms of implementing. And this is but one of those special reports and special interventions that we are doing to make sure that we elevate all those key issues, and we get all those role players in terms of the accountability ecosystem to also play their part in terms of the messages that we are trying to uplift and elevate, so that they can see where they are not playing their part. Where they are not playing their part, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members would recall that we've got the material irregularity process, which is the amendments to the Public Audit Act that was enacted or effected a couple of years ago. Jolene would have reported, as we were presenting, that there's a material irregularity that was identified at one of the water boards, but also as she was presenting, I recall she did make a comment to say, insofar as it relates to the irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, that we were investigating and assessing those to make sure that, if they don't meet the material irregularity principle, so that we can then enforce those powers in terms of those gaps that would have then been identified. Honorable Chair, honorable members would appreciate that because it's a legal process, you have to make sure that you're also getting it right, and therefore you have to really invest in making sure that your facts on the table are correct and you've done the proper determination. So we've now done the first part. Remember, our primary responsibility is to perform the audits in terms of the Constitution. I am an accountant, I'm an auditor by training, by qualification, and by my trade. So I must first do the audit, and once we find the irregularities, then only do we pursue to the next level and the next stage. And some of the stage, unfortunately, we are not police officers and we can't arrest people. But what we do, Honorable Chair, honorable members, is once we have from the work, the mandated work that we've then performed, if we find any irregularities or indicators of finding that maybe there's more to this finding that meets the eye, we then do refer some of those issues to the investigative authorities such as the Public Protector or the DPCI, being the Hawks, or the SIU, and they assist us then because they've got obviously the skills and the expertise to then deal with those matters. So those are some of the exciting things and how the system works in terms of the value chain from that point of view. Then there were also two comments that were made. And for me, I was quite pleased by the comments. I know we're not reporting nice things, but I was pleased by the comments and the manner in which they were made, in the sense that it showed a real proper understanding of the message we were trying to elevate and bring to the committee. And that's the comments that were made around the performance information. That is exactly why, even if you look at our structure of our report, we started by giving you the performance indicators first before we even went to the qualified and the unqualified processes. And Honorable Mutlala was quite right, through you, obviously, Chairperson, that it does not make sense. And that's why we elevated it to say, you set yourself out a target to achieve 0 days of interruptions. And then when you have the interruptions, then you say, well, actually, I have aging infrastructure. But you knew if you do proper financial planning, you understand your infrastructure composition, you understand what infrastructure you have, you understand whether you've invested in maintenance in your infrastructure or not, you should then know that where you are exposed. So, Honorable Chair, honorable members, this speaks to the adequacy within which management and the accounting authority in this portfolio, it speaks to the adequacy within which they do their risk management processes. Because risk management says, I sit as a board, as a portfolio right up front in the beginning of the year. And then I say, what risks, strategic risks, would potentially impede and prevent me from implementing my services? And if I have a proper understanding of those strategic risks, it means, therefore, that I then plan accordingly to mitigate those risks and then also make sure that I deliver on my strategic intent, which is the delivery of water. So had I known and understood my strategic risk to say, I'm actually dealing with aging infrastructure here, I would have then set my plan and my target out differently to account for those strategic risks that I face. And now it also now poses certain other problems, Honorable Chair, because now the follow-up questions that you may want to ask is, but how do we understand our maintenance schedule? How do we understand our maintenance plan? Because obviously the aging infrastructure, like the Honorable Member really mentioned so well captured, is the thing didn't just age overnight, it didn't just break overnight. So immediately now must spur other questions onto the, or bring other questions to the front, like the adequacy of the maintenance planning, the adequacy of the maintenance scheduling, and do we understand the strategic risks of our portfolio then by the time we then need to go and plan and execute our jobs. And then also latching onto that same point, Honorable Chair, honorable members, with your permission and indulgence, is the fact that this whole AOPO planning is exactly what we want to highlight, what we wanted to highlight, Honorable Chair, honorable members, in the sense that when the portfolio does its planning, sometimes it's not consistent.
Chairperson.
Tseki. Honorable Tseki.
I find there's no difference from what Andries is saying between earlier presentation and now. Can you just focus on questions, Chair, and assist us to move forward?
Chairperson.
Are you done? Honorable Shala, wait for a bit. Honorable Tseki, are you done?
Yes, I'm fine. I'm done, Chair. I was just advising.
Okay, get your point. Honorable Shala.
Please call Tseki out of order. Can you please call Tseki out of order, because we are getting responses here and we're not going to allow him to do what he is doing here.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Comrade Mutala. Can we be patient, honorable members?
Can we be,
they are the
one that country through what they are
Thanks, you made. Thank you very much, Honorable Mutlana. You've made your point. Can we all be patient, honorable members, and allow Mr. Sekgetho to respond to questions that have been asked? I think they've noted all the questions that honorable members we have asked, and they will respond to them. Thanks. Mr. Sekgetho can continue. And it's, what time is it? It's 17 minutes to 12. At least by 20 past, we must be done 20 past 12, because members must travel from different parliamentary villages to parliament using buses. And buses are leaving around 12:30. So at least by 20 past, we must be done. Thanks. Over to you, Mr. Sekgetho.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as I was saying, I was responding to the question specifically on the 0 days interruption in the aging infrastructure by saying that's exactly why we are highlighting it, and the fact that it actually poses certain additional questions that the committee and the members must consider in terms of how well the portfolio does its risk management and its risk planning processes, and whether they understand the strategic risks that they need to mitigate in order for them to then deliver the services. So that is exactly, I think Honorable Mutlala really grasps the issue that we were trying to highlight. The second issue that was raised in line with that, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, was also regarding the opinion that we have on the takeover of water supplies. So Honorable Chair, Honorable members, our position as the Office of the AG is very simple and very clear in this regard. And that's why we also highlighted the accountability eco chain to say there are specific role players who were assigned responsibilities in terms of the law to then go and implement certain things. Likewise, so we would, our long and short answer in terms of that, Honorable Member, Honorable Chair, would be that we must really just go and look at the roles and responsibilities and the performance contracts that we've signed with these people in terms of the responsibilities and the roles that they have been legally assigned by the PFMA, and hold them to account in that regard. And we should really start off there first before we consider drastic actions such as those. So in that regard, ours would be a proper enforcement of the accountability ecosystem and the consequence management before we consider the action in terms of the legal process and the takeover of processes. I think that will also assist in terms of the one question that was asked with regard to the deficiencies, because the deficiencies, yes, there are repeat deficiencies, and hence we compare year on year and maybe 3 or 4 years, we give you a view of that so that the portfolio committee and those charged with oversight can then get a view of whether we are making progress or not making progress. A key role player in this regard, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, that you've mentioned, is the department and the DWS. And it has a central and pivotal role to play in supporting the portfolio in terms of implementation of the remedial action plan, insofar as it relates to the quality, the water quality and the water losses. Honorable Chair, Honorable members, you would recall when we did the presentation for the BRRR, just as a reminder to the portfolio committee, we did include there that the focus area being water quality and water losses. We looked at the role and responsibility of the department, and there we also identified that at all material points in time, sometimes they don't get the information that they're supposed to get from the local government sphere, being the municipalities as well as the water boards, so that they can at least at the national point see what are some of the issues that the implementers are grappling with, and then go and develop an appropriate audit action plan. As a matter of fact, you would recall, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, we did mention that by the time we started talking to this new minister, there wasn't a water quality or blue or green drop report produced by the National Department over a number of years. And then when we started asking the questions, at least they moved and they produced the report on which we will then lay the foundation to then go and do some further work going forward in the future. But you need to first understand which municipalities, which water service authorities, which water boards are not complying, so that you can get the information, and then as the national department that you can then go and develop the national audit plan or the action plan, so that you can go and assist these colleagues to then deal with the water losses and the water quality. Then only will you be able to say, is the problem at the municipality level? What are the real root causes that have contributed to the water losses? Is it the aging infrastructure? Is it people not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Is it poor planning? Is it poor spec and design when we're implementing the pipes? But you can't do a root cause determination if you don't have the information and you didn't develop the national action plan. And that's the message that we gave the portfolio committee when we were briefing in the BRRR, and hopefully the department I know are working in the background to try and implement this action plan. And once we've unpacked it and seen what are some of of the root causes that have been highlighted, we'll also then invest a little bit more time to then also better understand the issue of the water quality and the water losses at that level. But the honourable member is correct that the department should play a greater role in supporting the water boards and then also the water service authorities in making sure that we are dealing with the water issue of water quality and the water losses. Then, Honourable Chair, honourable members, there was also the question around, I think I've answered the other one around what can we do more in the overall issue. The one remaining issue for me maybe that I'd like to touch on, that's also in line with the comments around the planning that was made a little bit earlier on. We did start to highlight that as Office of the AG, in part of our report that we've contained here, was also the fact that even though your targets and your indicators, they might be smart according to the criteria from the National Treasury, you must always take a step back as in a portfolio and ask, are they contributing towards the achievement of your mandate and the achievement of your strategic intent? So, for example, the Rainwater Board has got a target where they say they will not measure planned interruptions, water interruptions. So if it's planned, they say they had 0 interruptions to water supply because the interruption was planned. But Honourable Chairperson, whether the interruption is planned or unplanned, the impact on the citizen is still the same because that citizen will still sit without water. And therefore, are you then living up to your mandate in terms of water provision? So from a PFMA point of view and from a framework point of view, we can say, yes, you crafted your plan. I could see you said 0 or 5 or how many days, but does it make sense in line with what you are supposed to then deliver? There was also then an issue on the dependency of the municipalities in terms of the water boards. Our municipalities, the main customers, and therefore in terms of the reliability of supply, where does the issue lie? So, Honourable Chair, honourable members, remember we are just reflecting on the water boards. So when we talk about water interruptions and water losses, we are reflecting just at that particular level for that middle block that we showed in terms of the value chain for the water losses. So we would be dealing with some of those interventions and gaps that the water boards have got control over as they do their work. Remember, at some point in time, they hand over the water and it goes to the municipality level, and there could be a loss there when it comes to the reticulation network of the municipality. So our reflection in terms of reliability of supply was just in line with the water board responsibilities at the point in time when they are responsible for the water. But the comments that were made were still relevant in the sense that the national department must still oversee the water boards. They must still continue, and therefore, if there is a loss, in line with the previous comment I made, they must understand what contributed to the loss or the poor quality, and therefore then go and develop the national action plan to assist the portfolio to then be able to deliver quality water on a reliable basis. The other issue, maybe Jolene, you'll help with the Citibank issue with the 90 days and the financial planning and the social ills. I'm going to hand over with your permission to Jolene, Honourable Chair, in the interest of time as well. Jolene?
Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Honourable Chair. To clarify on the question of creditors greater than 30 days, it is correct, with the average being 341 days as was calculated, and that information is also included in the slides and in the Water Board report itself. Thank you. And Andres, I've been through my notes. According to my notes, I believe that you have covered all of the questions. So with that, thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Team AG. Members, I'm not quite sure whether, with regard to the questions that you have raised, we answered. Members, is there anything left behind? Honourable members, are you covered? I would like to, Mtoko, are you here? There was a question that was raised with regard to the scarcity of chlorine in our country, which is a challenge in most of the water boards. Do you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Yeah, I must say, Honorable Chairperson, I understood the Honorable Member to be saying that she would like to get some more clarity from the department in terms of why the DWS continues to rely on the use of chlorine when we know there's a general shortage, and therefore what are some of the measures and the actions that the department would then go to consider and implement to make sure that we get alternatives and not continue our over-reliance on the use of chlorine, Honorable Chair. So I take it that was aimed at the department. Thanks, Honorable Chair.
Yes, I agree with you, Mr. Sekhetu. Hence, I'm calling Metoko Sikwaza. I think she is the chief director responsible for water boards, in the department. So I saw her connected, but I'm not quite sure whether she's still with us or not. I wanted her to comment on the matter, not you, AG.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Yes, we have noted the issue. We had that problem which affected mainly the water bottle in the rural areas. We did struggle with Matola, Sedibeng and others, but we did intervene. There were mechanisms in terms of water boards sharing at the time, because water boards like Rand Water were able to, they had huge supply at that time. I think at that time there was a huge demand for chlorine, which led to the shortage, and also in terms of the manufacturing plants. So, Chairperson, it's something that we are encouraging water boards to collaborate and to work together and to ensure that if there is a shortage, they can share the resources. Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ma'am Toko, whilst you are still on the platform, it's this chlorine manufactured in the country or outside the country? I think there was a briefing that it was at some point, if I'm correct, that is manufactured out of the country. If not, do we have means? Are we collaborating with the like-minded institution to make sure that, something it's manufactured within this country? Any response on that?
Yes, Chairperson, a large part of it is manufactured outside of the country. The water boards have engaged on this one. At some stage, Chair, they wanted to start like Rand Water to build their own manufacturing capacity. And it's something that they are still talking about, because it will require much more additional skills, specialized skills in doing that. And also maybe it will also require the partnership and collaboration with local small manufacturers and with the external companies, Chairperson. So it is a combination, but a large part of it comes from outside the country.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ma'am Toko. Members, are you fine? Are you comfortable? Ma'am Nancy, I see your hand. If it's not a legacy hand.
Chair, I'm not sure if the department is not going to respond. Is that the procedure? In the whole inputs that we've made? I'm just asking, Chair. It's not the intention of the meeting.
Oh, yeah. Today, actually, we're interacting with the AG, but I took advantage that Ma'am Toko is there. But we still have time. I can allow her to speak to the issues that were raised by members, but not noting that maybe when they present their quarterly reports, I think it's important that we continue to raise these issues that have been highlighted by the Auditor-General, your action plan and all the challenges that are faced by water boards, and also maybe include even individual water boards. We can prioritize to say which water board can come and be part of that meeting, just to hear the issues thereof. Mantoko, if there are issues that were raised by members that need the departmental responses. If you have captured them, can you respond to that?
Chairperson, we can respond generally on the issues. Just to start by saying we welcome the report by AG. I think for us it's a very good independent analysis. I think it helps us because we will be able also to reflect on our function of overseeing the water boards. It does raise critical issues, Chairperson, of the water boards that we are currently worried about, like Amatola water, the Lepelle water in terms of the financial viability. So it confirms our concerns of those water boards that we need to monitor closely in terms of their cash flows as well. We are concerned about them since the disestablishment of Sedibeng in this financial year, but I think we are working closely with Machalis and Bloom Water to ensure that the transitional period between Sedibeng and those two receiving entities do not have a negative impact in terms of their financial viability. But in terms of the performance on the indicators, Chair, when we started, we only had about 10 indicators and to measure the performance of the water boards, and our indicators have grown to about 20 to 26. And I think, as you are saying, Chair, I think the quarterly reporting becomes critical to analyze those indicators when they come back. But I think it's critical indicators that really help us to know and measure the business of all the water boards. We have taken the decision as the department to review our indicators and tighten them, and also ensure that we standardize across the entire water boards. So we have started with the financials on a quarterly basis, and then we will be moving towards the other indicators. But Chairperson, I think we have also developed an action plan based on the AG's this 2020-21 post audit report. We have an action plan that we have developed with the water boards, and we will be starting to request water boards also to report on it as part of quarterly reporting, so that we see that they deal with those issues that were raised. The issues of financial stress are a huge concern to us because they touch on the municipal capacity to pay the water boards. And we know, Chairperson, now we can see that if the municipal business is not going well, it affects the entire water value chain, Chairperson. So we will also request your support when you visit municipalities that you also stress the critical importance of payment for services. Chair, if I can leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelebukha. Mamsloy, are you covered? with regard to the questions you raised and all other members?
Chair, I am covered. Here, Pinanguk. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. And
thank you.
We can hear you,
My icon
Honorable
got
Strai.
lost.
Now we can hear you. Just speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for the general presentation by the DG on these issues. I think what becomes important is that the department must monitor the boards, even in the initial stages of their program planning, because you must not chew more than that you can swallow. And that does not make you to be less. You are still equal with others, but you are real. You are real. Because the whole issue now is on the basis that you want to move a high ladder, whereas you are in the middle or you are lesser than other people. That's what is revealed in this report of the AG in terms of the indicators and the targets. Now, the department must monitor and be able to say, Lepele, you can't. You cannot because of A, B, C, D, E. Because this is like an impact evaluation. We want an impact to our people. And the lesser, the wrong planning that we do, and the lack of resources that we put in our planning is going to undermine the impact that we want. We're dealing with lives of the people here. We're really dealing with the lives of, I'm just saying, Chair, we want that action plan of the department, but my worry are the procedures of the department that when they come with the action plan, another damage have happened. I leave that view to you. So there is a need to have a focus, more especially to those that are sequential in non-achievement. There's a word used by I don't know English. I would say consequence or consecutive every financial year. We need to get to the crux of the matter as a national department with our board. As you listen that there are so many, and more than the half of them, they are not effective. So it's important that we come clear on how we make them to be effective in their programs, their performance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Skhai. I think the message has been conveyed to the National Department. Yeah, and we'll meet very soon when they present their quarterly report so that we can be able to raise those issues. Chair Mashego, Chairperson Mashego.
Good morning, Whip and the members of the Portfolio Committee and the officials. I'm struggling a bit. I've got sore ribs, having been trampled on by thugs. Just a general comment, Chair. I think our generosity of wanting to listen even to the department in the meeting where the Auditor-General is giving findings might lose the effect of us being specific. That's why the department is even saying that they are going to respond generally because they are not specific oriented. To me, earlier on, you did make a commitment that we will have a date or a day or two where the boards themselves must be asked questions Upon them having given answers, we must then go to the department and find how part to respond to those boards, given using the findings of the Auditor-General in as far as responding is concerned. So I want to still commit to that engagement you said, that we must have a day where boards themselves talk to us rather than the department talking to us on behalf of the boards, or the Auditor General's report representing that which we want to hear from the board, specifically separate meetings where our oversight is not subdued by supposed to be and what is happening. So I should think that in your summary you still want to go back to that recommendation that we will need days where we speak to all the boards and they respond to us directly rather than they be responded to on behalf by the department. And then the department also come and respond on their work as compared to how do they oversight the boards having been by the auditor. So I'm not sure whether those days, how far were you targeting them? But I think it is important that you go back to that. Yes, we're going to use the quarterly report.
Unmute, Chair. Unmute, Chair. Oh, he's but we can't hear him. Chair Mashego. Honorable members, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
We can hear you, Chair.
Okay. Oh, I think the problem is from Mashego's side. Honorable Mashego. Oh, he's out. He's out now. He's been kicked out. Yeah, but I hear, general members, I hear what the chairperson is saying. I think he will be able to sit as the chair of this committee, will be able to sit with the support staff, just check the program going forward. Some days that are open so that we can be able to meet with these boards. But generally, we agree that we will meet this board. But I want to hear the views from Mr. Schato, because the analysis that we are getting now, the audit findings that we are getting now, it's for 2020-2021. And just want to check whether the 2021-22 are they done with the audit findings. Because I'm of the view that we give boards opportunity to present on their 2021-2022 financial year. Mr. Scott, are you done with the 2021-2022?
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson.
Mr. Schato?
All right, thank you, Chair.
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you, Chair. No, thank you for the question, Chair. No, Chair, the 21-22 financial year audit was only completed the end of October. So we've got all the audit reports for the audits which have been finalized, issued to the water board. What we're doing now is a consolidation of the report, and hopefully in the next couple of months, we should then come back to the committee to come and brief the committee on the consolidated report of the 2022 financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right, okay. No, I get the points. Honourable members, I'm giving this task to the chair of the committee, together with the support staff, to deal with all the outstanding matters between ourselves and the boards and the department. I would not confirm, but the principle is that we agree that we will meet individual water boards, just to get a better understanding of the work that they're doing and the challenges they're facing, and how are they dealing with the responding to the audit findings of the raised by the Auditor-General. for now, I think we are fine. We are covered with all the issues that we have raised. And thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you very much, officials from the department, our support staff. Thank you very much for being part of the meeting and always supporting this committee. Thank you, members of parliament, for availing yourself. Yeah, the task is too huge, and we must be able to address the issues that are affecting our communities on a daily basis. And yeah, water is life, sanitation is dignity. This is what we've committed for as the country. Thank you very much, Auditor General, for your presence. Can I declare this meeting officially closed, members? And thank you for availing yourself and nominating me as the chair. Thanks. You've been a good audience and participants. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.
Viva Chair, viva. Thank you, Chair.
Tot ziens julle.
Aye, when are you
Honorable Chair,
quiet, man?
members, keep
Leon.
on.
Leon and Mayback. Your silence is deafening.
Bye.
Hi,
Bye,
Leon.
bye.
Bye. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, honorable members.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you
bye.
very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I see the message. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye, Mam Swai. Well done.
Bye.
Well done. See
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. We'll communicate with the chair just now.